Well, they say second time's the charm. At least that's what I would say right now. After a false start, finally, we're here to review the Australia-Netherlands game. Fairly damn squib, to be honest. A record-breaking win for Australia. They managed to thump Netherlands by 309 runs. A fantastic century from Maxwell as an RCB fan. I couldn't be more happier, but I don't think I'm as happy as I thought I would be. I can't even get myself to lie about it. I could really feel for Scott Edwards in the couple of visuals that I saw when Maxwell was just going berserk. Those reverse scoops usually that sort of keep me very jubilated. Nah, that wasn't the case today. Firosha Kotla's spectators were treated to Arun Jaitley Stadium spectators rather were treated to some spectacle there, to be honest. David Warner first, Glenn Maxwell then coming in the 41st over, somehow managed to rack up his century, even then his third in ODIs, second in World Cups, and of course the fastest in World Cup history. Hello Nikhil bhai, hello Gurkirat, how are we doing? I don't think both of you are matching the energy levels that Maxwell showed on the ground in the first innings. I guess a lot had to do with how quickly Netherlands folded. Nikhil bhai, let's start with you. The result was on the cards.
Yeah, pretty much. But you probably just felt that there was a lot more that was going well for a certain point of time. But again, maybe it's just our expectations. But that miss run out, bowling Vikramjit Singh to Smith. I mean, those things. Best teams are not going to leave you, unscathed from there. And I mean, Maxwell, after 40 overs, that is the latest anybody has come and scored a century. So that just tells you everything that you should know. And actually, the last wicket sums up Netherlands today. You know, English didn't want to, ended up getting the last wicket stumped. It just sums up that a day the Netherlands will want to forget. Most of the batters got out. Vikramjit Singh got run out. Paji can take over on that bit. But apart from that, I think they still bowled. They fielded very well. Credit to Netherlands, they were superb in terms of their fielding. Apart from that one Maxwell mishap, everything was almost to the point. They bowled decently. It was just Maxwell being himself at the end, and he just batted them out of the game.
I mean, since you mentioned fielding, special shout out to Colin Ackerman and Engelberg. The wicket of Maxwell, that was a fantastic catch. Like, for any team, it would have been very easy to just sort of, throw in the kitchen sink and just be like, okay, we're done. Maxwell's already taken the game away from us. There's no point. Excellent fielding effort. They remained consistent throughout. But Gurkirat, you can come in here for a team that, vows to play total cricket, as Ryan Cook put it. This wasn't the greatest of performances, especially given that they were coming fresh off of a win against South Africa and then a very, very, very competent performance against Sri Lanka and Lucknow. They would have wanted to put a better foot forward today, right?
Yeah, they would have wanted to, but sometimes you just can't control. And I don't think, given how Maxwell was batting today, there was much that they could have done. The only thing that I think, like how Nikhil mentioned, what they could have probably done better is, take that run out opportunity, which came off Warner. Maybe that would have allowed them to slow the game down a little bit. But it wouldn't have really changed the result. What happened today was, they did not get Warner early starting, and they had the right plan to bowl Aryan Dutt, but Warner just those 4 fours in that over. I think with that just one over, he spoiled a lot of plans for Netherlands, and from there on, it just was one-way traffic. There was some low bounce which we had spoken of in the preview to take advantage of, but then I don't think Netherlands really had those bowlers to take advantage of it. And then today it was, I don't know, even Smith came out in a mood where he also started very quickly. There was at one point of time he had a better strike rate than Warner. Got a few deliveries which he could have easily hit to the boundary. Really drove well, so they never really got into the game. And you can have games like those, especially on pitches like this, where small boundaries really free you up. And that's what happened. So you'll have to feel for Netherlands. Really not sure what they would have done differently. Maybe would have tried to win the toss, but that's also really not in your control.
True that. I mean, true that. A lot of run scorers for Australia, barring probably Mission to some extent Green. Let's just have a look at the match summary to understand what exactly happened there. Nikhil Bhai, Maxi with a 50, I mean, sorry, a century. Warner with a century, his second consecutive ton, if I'm not wrong. And of course, Steven Smith with that fantastic 50 to come back into form. At least that's what Australian fans would be hoping is the case. But how would you rate Netherlands bowling, especially given how the surface played? Gurkirat already mentioned that the toss wasn't in their hands. Uh, so what do you think of that? Because there was a four you can see. Bas de Leede, of course, unfortunately has the wrong record under his name. How would you sort of sum it up? Netherlands bowling performance in particular.
See, as Pali said, the problem happened when Arun was hit for four boundaries, because that's probably the only time I have seen Scott Edwards change his plans that much. That Arun did not bowl then. He went to Vikramjit Singh later, and then Bas de Leede also came in towards the later half, post the 20th, 30th over. So that just tells you how much pressure, sometimes just that one over can create. Sometimes you feel that only happens in T20s, but this was a classic case of, again, I wouldn't say disappointed, but I was very surprised that how quickly Scott went away from that plan, because that plan was working. It has worked for you all through the while. Maybe he felt that okay, something else might do better, but it just sums up whatever that they've tried today didn't quite work out, apart from the fielding bit, because Paul Van Mickenham also came back in, and then he bowled a couple of short balls to Warner, and that looked good. We discussed this in the preview as well, that Smith getting runs is crucial. Smith came in and they immediately went to hitting the stumps, which is again a fair strategy. But something Ian Bishop said that will probably now stay with me for a long time, that they made it too obvious. That when you make it so obvious for the guy at the other end that this is what we are trying to get you at, then he starts to prepare for you much better, and then he's going to react to it also quicker. So now that is something. Let's see how often teams are able to mix and match what they are trying to do. But you still feel till the probably 25th, 30th over mark, there was still a semblance of chance. And when they took those two quick wickets, you felt that okay, because Warner also slowed down. Now, for what and what not, the jury's out there. But Manas outbatted, in terms of strike rate. Smith also did that at one point of time. So it wasn't required, because Maxwell gave himself time. And that is something that we have been asking of Maxwell every single time he comes out to bat, that give yourself time. And today just was another example that in the last game I had told that I made him captain, so he got out for a duck. And today I didn't, so he's got a century. So it's just classic day out for me and Netherlands.
Well, let's hope Netherlands don't see too many such days. But Gurkirat, in the preview, you'd mentioned a couple of things about Maxwell, especially the fact that Australia would want him to finish stronger. And that would be possible only if the openers and the top order, they're able to set some sort of a base for him to, sort of build on. Today, we saw just that happen. We saw the top order get some runs. We saw the middle order also contribute to some extent. Maxwell's entry point was almost as good as it can get for someone like him who likes to, sort of get going as soon as possible, at least in the ODI format. That is, he came in the 41st over. And that sort of is reflected in the immense progression, because if you see how they sort of progress, 66, 58, 68, 76, again, very healthy scoring rate in all those 40 overs. I mean, in all those 10 over blocks, still the 40 over mark. And then we see that skyscraper. We see that 131 runs scored in the final 10 overs. What I wanted to actually get at is that, at least personally, I feel I've observed a pattern in how Delhi in particular has seen a lot of runs being scored in the death overs. Be it the, be it the England game against Afghanistan, be it even Afghanistan, India for that matter. Even when Bumrah bowled, Afghanistan managed to score around 65, 70 runs in the final 10 overs. And of course, South Africa, Sri Lanka, how can we forget that? How much of it do you think has to do with the surface itself, or do you think the surface is just a mere spectator and it's just the teams batting properly and the typical ODI template playing out?
I think it's got more to do with the boundary dimensions, because as a batter, see, the ball's getting older and softer at each and every venue. The outfield at the stadium is a good one. So that means the ball isn't getting as abrasive as you would like. So that is one factor. It's a small factor, but it's still a factor. The other is by and large, this has been a good batting pitch. And the third thing, which I feel is more important, is there are definite areas in the ground where you feel that the boundary is only 60 meters, or sometimes it's even lesser than that. So as a batter, that you don't have to force the issue. If you get a ball in that area, you can manage a boundary. So I think as a batter, it just frees you up, that you don't have to take that extra chance or extra risk. So I will not be surprised if this remains this remains a sort of that on venues, where the boundaries are slightly smaller. You could see that even if the pitch gets slower, the ball gets softer, you will still have teams targeting 75 to 80 runs. So I think that is a huge factor. And then you have to see the mismatch as well. When South Africa were playing Sri Lanka did not have their best bowling attack, right? And South Africa were all guns blazing. Today, similar. Netherlands, while they have done well, it's really not a bowling attack that can challenge a team like Australia when on song on a venue like this. In fact, you could have a very good bowling lineup, even struggle to contain teams in the last 10 here, purely because of the boundary sizes. So yeah, it's that only one game remaining at the venue. So yeah, maybe we can then, at the end of the tournament, look at which venue was the more conducive for end overs aggression.
True that. And just a follow up question that Santosh has asked. He's asked us, are we seeing high scoring at Delhi for the first time in our lives? Nikhil bhai, I want you to chip in here because off the top of my head, like, I remember IPL at least 2011, 2012 when Chris Gill used to play, because I remember that 128. I remember Virat Kohli's 99. So I might be biased here because I would particularly remember the RCB games that were played here. But I remember high scores coming here. What do you make of it? Like, do you think Delhi was always a very slow sort of, scoring surface, and something that's changed now?
Yeah, again, a lot has to also do with the time of the year that you are playing. You play your IPL games at a very different time of the year, and this is happening at a different time of the year. Uh, Again, Warner and Marsh would have spent enough time now here to get all the calls and video calls done with every management possible कि भाई यही चाहिए जैसा भी चाहिए, and which won't be fair, unfair also, because that is how the team is set up. So I think very interested to see if they are able to maintain this. But again, pitches and all conditions, they depend a lot on what you get at that time of the year. So let's see if it holds up, because if it does stay like this during the IPL, then I know somebody who will be very happy and smiling and may not be dissociating himself from the team. So yeah.
He's not talking
Wait,
about me.
is this
Let's
person a
make
part
it
of
very
this
clear.
stream? Just to be
No,
clear,
no.
Nikhil.
Who knows?
He's,
Who
he,
knows?
he's talking.
Who
He's
knows?
talking
All
of
right.
Shubh. He's talking of
Okay.
Shubh.
All right. We've spoken about a couple of, very, very, very good
But
performances
just
today.
just on that bit, what Santosh was asking, before this World Cup, there were only two scores of more than 300 in 27 ODIs at this venue. So this is the flattest that Firozshah Kotla has been. In T20s, it could have been slightly more flat, but again, you have to keep in mind that it's only 40 overs. So for a pitch to retain its nature over 40 overs is far more easier than to do it over a stretch of 100 overs or so. So yeah, this in my cricket watching, this has been the best the best Kotla pitch in terms of batting.
All right, well said there. But yeah, like I was saying, a couple of performances that we've already spoken about. But let's talk about who the top performer of this game is in the next segment. Top performer is a sort of, an exercise in vanity, so to say, because Nikhil bhai, are we on the same page in terms of who we have as the top performer of the day, Gurkirat? All said and done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much.
Okay.
Just
So of
just want
course.
to
Yeah.
yeah, I just want to explain how astonishing his record-breaking knock was today. Uh, he got to his 140 balls, right? That's a strike rate of 250. Markram got it in 49. Now, if he had batted at the same strike rate, which is nine more balls at the same strike rate, he would have ended up around 122 or something. to break a record like that by 9 balls is a huge margin. 9 balls is a huge margin in such records, and more than the World Cup record, he was much closer in breaking the overall fastest for ODI century record. So this was phenomenal. Yes, you can talk about flat with small boundaries and everything, but it's insane the how he was just finding the boundaries and hitting them. It's yeah, it's those once in a lifetime kind of innings that one day as a batter you get that day where you know that anything and everything that I'll try and hit, it will take the middle of the bat and it will find the boundary, and something that doesn't take the middle of the bat, it will find a way to reach the boundary. It's just that kind of a day for, and I think all batters tend to have at least one such day in their careers.
Though
Definitely, and to be
I
honest,
just want to add that I don't think this was one of those knocks where Maxwell tried a lot of things though. I felt he started very, looking to time the ball, not looking to power. It was only when he hit Bas de Leede for that crazy, unbelievable scoop, it's when I felt that okay, abhi se ye kuch bhi karega to it will work out. But I think that's where Maxwell's magic lies. That starting into a zone where he's not just looking to overhit and he's looking to time the ball, and that is where I hope he and everybody who's around him is able to just spend that enough time that it is not even that we're telling you to take 5-10 balls, just take 2-3 balls. I mean, 2-3 in an ODI is not a lot, given whichever position you are coming in. Because what he showed today is something. Because the thing is, were you surprised that he played that now? No, there was not a single person who was surprised that he can do this. So the thing is, he can always do it, but can he just have some sort of pattern to it that okay, this is how I'm going about it. Maybe it will come up far more. So in regards to that, I think this is something that he can emulate, not as a 40-ball century, but the start like that. That he can get into where he can get consistently good starts if he just gives himself a bit more time. So maybe I am trusting Maxwell far more, just like every other franchise that's existed in this system.
But this is something that even Maxwell admitted in the post-match chat. He was asked that what did you do different. He said that I tried to work on my shot selection because it's something that I haven't done well, and I tried to give myself a little time. So, yeah, if he resorts to this template, teams that are yet to face Australia, they'll be worried because now all top five have scored runs. Coming into this game, we spoke of how uh, Smith not getting runs is a concern. Marnus needs to get runs. Maxwell's not scored runs today. All three of them did, and yeah, you'll have to say that they will still take confidence from this. A lot of asterisks could be attached, but there's nothing like scoring runs and taking confidence from it, regardless of whichever opposition it is.
definitely, and just speaking about the kind of knock that Glenn Maxwell played, in all fairness, it was a knock that only someone like Glenn Maxwell could play. Because Nikhil bhai, you can probably take this up. If you look at the wagon wheel, just see the number of sixes he's got behind the square. How often do you see that? There was a scoop, there was a reverse swoop, there was also a slice over point. I mean, is this guy a freak or what? Like, usually you see sixes being played in the V, being probably off your pulls and hooks and all of that. Maxwell just a completely different beast that way. Like, how would you sort of target him given the kind of shots he plays, the kind of areas he looks to access?
I said today again when you realize things that are happening for him, it is the same thing that we've discussed with Klassen as well. That when people are in their best of the forms, you have to just to look to try and you bowl your best ball, and then if it goes the distance, it goes the distance. You can't do anything about it. Like the slice that he had of that went for six. Now there is nothing that you can do about it. It's just a great shot played by a man in best of their form. So the best thing that you can do there is try and get them as early as possible. Don't try and allow them any way to just get into that innings. Maybe as Maxwell said, I just wanted to give myself time. If somehow you are able to create a situation where he's forced to take that risk, you know, that is your best chance, and that's what you will hope for everybody, be it Klassen or anybody who's in form that like England did with Clinton. You have to just try and get them at their earliest because if they stay there, you are not going to stay in the game. So that is your best chance, and sometimes you can't even do much. So you just have to doff your hat off and say that, boss, well played. Sorry, we didn't have any answers. So yeah, that's also it's just part of the game.
That also kind of reminds me the kind of day Netherlands had, because Cybrand, if I remember the way he got out, a fantastic bull that he timed the bones out of,
And
one
Warner
out of
is
nowhere just flies in, tuck, catch. I thought that was a six for all money. He तो जा रहा है छक्का, and out of nowhere I just see a leaping David Warner celebrate. I'm like, oh man, what a day for Netherlands. Either ways, before we move on to the next segment, a couple of very interesting questions, actually more than a couple, so let's just take them up. Firstly, Pranav, he asked us, was Bas de Leede using three-quarter wobble? Nikhil bhai?
Yeah, he
And
was doing it very often, and he did beat the bat as well enough, And the slowdown that you saw, even with Manas, he got one that was they reviewed also. And that was also, I think, cross seam. So you see a lot of people are now starting to use it. So that is the flavor of the World Cup then.
that way it also helps that his natural length is slightly on that 6 meter, 4 to 6 meter length.
Yeah.
Because I can think of that Rizwan wicket. I can also think of the Shadab wicket, if I'm not wrong, from the Pakistan game that he took. Both of them. Was it Shadab? I know Rizwan for sure. I don't know who
Yeah.
the second wicket was. Both was just that top of off somewhere there in the corridor of uncertainty.
It
But
was
Even
one
Iftikhar.
Iftikhar wicket
Iftikhar.
and Shafiq dismissal that Siraj had, that was also
Huh,
cross seam.
of course,
So
yes.
yeah, I think many people, many bowlers are resorting to it because just to add to that uncertain nature, which
Correct.
Lord has told us.
And one more question that I sort of wanted to ask you, just as a follow up to that, given that his natural lengths are that, we saw in the final 10, he tried to attempt those Yorkers as much as possible. He got them wrong more often than not. Again, that's the nature of the game. Yorkers are a high risk, high reward option. I mean, is a high risk, high reward option. He either bowled half volleys or ended up bowling too many full tosses. uh, to bowlers whose natural lengths aren't those, whose natural lengths are slightly shorter, how do you think they should adjust? Because again, like Gurkir had mentioned, smaller boundaries, bowling those lengths, Maxwell's going to just rock back and pull them left, right, and center. So what do you do? Just not give him a ball in the end?
See, which is why all of these, when you take into context of the dimensions of the ground, you see the third man fine leg was almost as tiny as a 30-yard circle. So there you have no room to err, be it on any side. You can't be short because it is anyways a tiny ground, and there is one shorter side. People will always hit to that part. But something that Bas de Leede did very early in the game, where he had Smith pulling one, and I think it was Aaron Dutt at the end in the D who was in. Now that makes no sense. Because why was Aaron Dutt in on the shorter side of the fence when you know कि अगर connect होगा भी, so it will probably just carry to you. So that is still always going to be a risk and reward strategy only because the margin of error is very very less. Because you see he tried to go around the wicket and then bowl slant across, but then Maxwell was so good that he's able to access that part of the field as well. So it also depends on who you are bowling to, and which is why sometimes you see if it's a, again, not to name or something, but if it's a Pollard who's batting. Now we saw that in the IPL as well, that teams know that he will not scoop or he will not hit the third man or that area. So that helps the bowler plan better. But if it is somebody like a Maxwell, a AB de Villiers, or a Klassen with whom you know that they can anytime just open the face of the bat and get it there, it's going to be very very difficult to bowl to them. So you'll have to be very sure of your options.
I think with batters like these, you have two options. One is to bowl on one side of the wicket and have fields for that. That would probably telegraph the batter what your plan is, but so be it. Okay, have that field on the longer side of the boundary, telegraph that plan, but stick to it. Let him make that play. The other is you be good at double bluff. If the field is set for a bouncer, try and bowl the Yorker. But then it has to be your strength that you can bowl that Yorker. If you have set the field for a Yorker, see if you can bowl the bouncer. I feel the second is harder to execute because at the back of your mind you will still know ki I don't have the field for this. So even if I get an edge or something, it could fly to the boundary. So the best thing that you can then do is try and make sure that you will bowl to one side of the field and stick to it. If the batter is then able to maneuver the field and find the boundary, ठीक है, you have to move forward and okay, agree, you can't do anything about it. But that is the only way I think sometimes is left for you as a bowler or as the fielding captain when a batter is in that kind of a form and has that greater range. Because You can't do anything beyond that. If a batter is toying with you, he's toying with you. You have to accept it.
All right, let's hope Netherlands accept this defeat and quickly move on from it, because this is the kind of defeat that sort of tends to demoralize teams. Unfortunately for them, because the points that you mentioned, maybe a venue like Chennai, where there are longer square boundaries, maybe
Yeah.
something like that could have been a lot more helpful. Not to be the case, if I'm not wrong, they're not playing a single game there, at least going forward. But talking about a few more questions here, I see a couple of stat padding related questions. I see a couple of milestone related questions. I'll just quickly skip them. Jem Omaya, I mean, again, just a brief uh, point that he's mentioned.
Yes.
Zimbabwe, Namibia, Sikandar Raza, if I'm not wrong, what 80 out of 30 or something. That's what I remember seeing there. But I also understand that Namibia were playing a second string attack, second string lineup. Many of the first 11 players weren't there.
They won the first game handsomely. It is not a second string lineup. मतलब, the batters may be, but ठीक है, it is fine. मतलब. The bowling is still
Rumpelman
decent.
भी तो नहीं खेला ना, लेकिन I don't think he's a
But
part
then
of this.
they anyways don't see Bernard Scholes, Chikongo, Jonathan Smith, Erasmus Filing. They've all been very regular. So only a few players haven't played. And again, Trumpelman also they don't usually use him in chases. So it's okay. Sikandar Raza अच्छा खेला करें दो यार.
I mean, moving on from one country starting with the alphabet N to another, New Zealand, that is not even Netherlands. I just realized there's a third country right now, Netherlands के बारे में भी बात किया हमने काफी हद तक. Nikhil Baiju asks us, not sure why are we taking it for granted that New Zealand will qualify for semis. They're going up against an informed South Africa. Of course, they're also facing Australia and Dharamshala, and then an unpredictable Pakistan side. They could very well lose all three. Sachin Mondal, अगर आप देख रहे हो भाई comment, ये मैंने नहीं डाला है भाई, और ये मैंने उसको बोला भी नहीं डालने के लिए, पता है ना, बस just to keep it there. But yeah, Gurkirat, maybe you can take this up, because I've actually been mentioning the very same point that they have some very tough fixtures going forward. You think that could be a cause for concern for them?
See, even if they lose to say South Africa and Australia, they will still have two games remaining, one against Pakistan and one against Sri Lanka, which you expect them to win. So, and they have a decent enough net run rate. So you'd think that even if those are close losses, they should sort of bail through. And one of the reasons to feel that they could, win one of the games versus Australia or South Africa is because they've been one team that has been doing a lot of basics right. You really have to beat them at their own game, outclass them, or do something that they did not expect. They're not going to hand over basic errors to you. So when you know you are up against a side that's not going to hand over basic errors to you, especially when they're not in that pressure, so the propensity for that team to make errors decreases a lot more. In the game versus India, they were two down early, but they still made a point to attack both. Maybe they did not attack Jadeja as much, but to attack Kuldeep fairly quiet. Like they wanted to treat him like a part timer. Make no mistake, the way just they started to go after him. So they are a team that will. So like I said earlier, you could really expect New Zealand to come hard at Maxwell. I genuinely think that game could be a test for Maxwell, the bowler, because it's not like today. It's not a huge boundary. If there's a decent enough start, then you could see one batter at least in the opposition just take on Maxwell, because they know if you take on Maxwell, then Cummings will have to think, okay, who do I get overs out of? Do I go to Stoinis? I'm not sure if Stoinis is fit or not. Maybe they are still worried about Stoinis' fitness, which is why they gave the ball to Marsh in the end to bowl him a few overs. So that is one team that knows where to hit which team, and then try and bring that game to a level playing field wherein whichever team blinks first, that team's going to go down. So they are rarely the team that blinks first, which is why after the start they've gotten, you feel that they'll eventually still make it to the top four despite the tough fixtures.
All right. Speaking of tough fixtures, Santosh Udpa says, or rather, yeah, says actually, states, not even says, are we set for a great 4 days going forward? England, Sri Lanka tomorrow, Pakistan, South Africa on Friday. Saturday is New Zealand, Australia, and of course, Sunday is India, England. But my friend, you've missed the most important fixture. Saturday is a doubleheader.
Netherlands, Bangladesh.
Exactly. Netherlands, Bangladesh, and that too in Eden Gardens. I'm genuinely looking forward to that, because it'll be a fun encounter to watch out for. But yeah, a very pertinent question rather, given that Gurkirat and Nikhil both mentioned how pretty much all of Australian batters have now gotten some runs under their belt. M. Rajesh asked us, and if I'm not wrong, Nikhil or Santosh also earlier asked us, who goes out and where will Marsh play, of course, because Marsh won't be dropped if Head comes back into the 11. So do you see Head and Warner again opening right at the top as they did in the South Africa series, or do you see it play differently? Nikhil, you can probably take this up now that everyone else has gotten some runs. That's the reason why this becomes even more muddled that way.
See, I think it's very clear. Marsh also made it very obvious that he's going to be the one who bats at three. He even joked about asking Warner to bat at three and said he got a firm no from him. So I don't think there's any doubt there. What I also think could happen, and it's a very very big if, I think they may not play Green and they may not play Stonis also. They could just play ahead and have Marsh bowling 2-3 overs every game. Because then what that does is it strengthens their batting. They've had people scoring runs and in form, and Travis Head can also roll his arm out. So if you look at the bowling attack, then you have Stark, Hazelwood, Cummins, Zampa. Those four are already there. Your 40 overs are set, and then you have three options to complete 10 overs, which should not be a problem depending on the situation and the deck and the opposition. So again, I don't know whether it will happen, but I think it could be a possibility because they aren't getting much from Green or Stonis any which way. Stonis, yes, bowled well, got them those two crucial wickets. So yeah, if he's fit, then yes. But I think as compared to Green, I feel it's better to then have Marnus in the side as opposed to having Green because we'll have to use Green very, very smartly. And I think maybe that could be a way. If Marsh continues to be fit and bowling well, so then it should not be a problem.
All right, very well put that. I mean, given the kind of performance Australia put in today, a massive net run rate boost to them, not to forget the 2 points, of course. That's helped them leapfrog most teams and now enter the top four with a very, very, very healthy net run rate of 1.14 now. So in the top four, India, South Africa, New Zealand, Australia, which also seem to be like the top. I mean, the top four right now also reflects the kind of form each of these teams are in because midway into the tournament, I mean, sort of midway into the tournament, these are the four teams most, fans and viewers are sort of expecting to make it to the final top four. That is the semis, of course. Speaking of a few fixtures now going forward, Australia, as we've already discussed, Netherlands, of course, they'll next be playing Bangladesh and Kolkata on Saturday, of course, something that I'm looking forward to. They then play Afghanistan in Lucknow, and then they move to Pune to play England, which is on the 8th of November, and they end their tournament against India in Bangalore. A couple of, I wouldn't say easy, but a couple of fixtures where they can really punch above their weight and probably grab a couple more points. A couple more fixtures where, yeah, you could say that they would want to put a solid performance so that people probably, make note, sit up and make note of them. Again, like any positives for Netherlands, Nikhil bhai, you can probably start with this before we wrap this up because fielding, yeah, we discussed, but do we have to nitpick not to sort of get into positives for Netherlands? Not the kind of performance they want to remember, of course.
Yeah, and see, better teams and stronger teams have had days like that where they got shot out for a low score, chasing a massive score. So, not a game where you should put yourself under too much, stress thinking. Actually, if you see most of the games in this World Cup, sides have lost heavily. But compared to what we used to think in the past that, they've lost by 200 runs or they lost by, it's not playing as much of a mental, effect in than we expect it to be. कि यार 300 रन से हार गए यार क्या सोच हुआ. Of course it hurts and of course it will sting. But I think given that you play so much cricket, there was a point of time where you knew it was not going to be your day and you're going to lose. So sometimes it makes it probably just a bit easier to move on from it. So I hope Netherlands will be able to do that because they have two very good fixtures in the remaining four where they could really put up a good show and potentially take two more wins. And if you told them at the start of this World Cup that they're getting three, I'm sure they would have wanted the semi-final, which would be great. But at this point of time, I'll be happy to take as many wins as I can. So I think dust this game off. You had a rough day. That's okay. They're still one of the better prepared teams. Let's see what they have to say and do in the next few months.
Yeah, fingers crossed, the orange. I was about to say army for some reason. Okay, let's not call them the orange army because that's clearly taken. Let's hope the team in orange, I'll put it that way. Let's hope the team in orange get a couple more points, if not more. A couple more wins would be great, of course. But yeah, time to wrap today's review up. We've of course got England Sri Lanka tomorrow coming up, which is of course happening in Bangalore. We'll be doing the fan cam. Avnish will be near the stadium. So guys, whoever's going to the stadium to watch the game, make sure you catch a glimpse of him. Make sure you also talk to him. Make sure you also tell him that why Sri Lanka is also not going to make it to the semis, because he for some reason thinks that they could. They have an outside chance. I'm tired of arguing with him. Not the
Who
easiest.
thinks? Who thinks?
Avnish,
Who
who
thinks they're
else?
true?
Avnish. But yeah, one more plug-in before we end this, guys. The latest episode of Game Nights is out. In fact, it came out at 8 o'clock. Make sure you also give that a check. Also, let us know what you like, what you didn't. Do give that a check and also show your love there. Make sure you've also liked the stream if you haven't already. Subscribe to our channel. I know most of the viewers right now are our subscribers, are people who know us in and out. So it's always good to see you guys. Pranav, Santosh, thank you so much. That's it from us today. Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Gurkirat. See you guys tomorrow, and until then.
I'm not able to hear you.
Hello.